Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Animal Anatomy, Obscure and Odd Organs, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader, Arpita Dutta. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Over to you, Arpita.
Thank you so much, Rob, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. And as I say, it's always a pleasure to bring new topics, new things in front of you. But I apologize for keeping my webcam off to keep the bandwidth so that it doesn't get stuck in between, because I'm like giving this webinar from a very remote place. And let me tell you, from a very like the north bank of Kaziranga National Park, where our actually NHA team lead. But I promise you, as soon as I can travel or go to some place where I'll get a good bandwidth, I'll surely switch on my webcam. But till the time, please bear with me. So yes, today actually, while doing a lot of like odd topics, which I've been doing, even I did few with Payal, the more you are digging, the more you are getting to know the animals closely. And while just going through it, I found some extraordinary things about the animals and, of course, about the organs. And we know how important the organ is for all the living organisms which are living on this planet. Mostly when we talk about organs, so this is like, it's a collective tissue form a functional unit, like specialized to perform a particular function. So they are not all jumbled up together, but without each other or without the supporting of each other, our body cannot perform in a regular manner. That's right. I mean, if I'm considering everything with the human organs and what the animal organ has, or what the difference, or what we are lacking, or what they are lacking. So in that way, thankfully, we are like after through this whole 450 millions of evolution, we have like evolved in such a way that the primitive things have gone and we got into a lot of complex organ or functional system, and we do have these organs to survive, to reproduce, to think, and the measure is like to function our body. And thankfully, we say one of the most vital organ is our brain. That kind of holding everything in our body. And thanks to the brain, which has the ability to understand, perform, keep the rest of the body like synchronized, even, we are giving so much for bringing too many inventions because of our need or to make our life easy. But of course, the animals cannot do the invention. They have the capability of adaptation with the evolution or the environment, how nature is giving through. For example, I always say that whenever we feel warm, we have a lot of jackets and all, we kind of keep on pulling it on. And when we feel warm, we turn on the air conditioner. But in case of animals, they have like for mammal, because we are mammal, so they kind of grow a winter coat which is much more thicker to keep them warm. And even in summer they lose that winter coat and the fur become much more light so that the air can pass in and they spend a good summer. So this is how the organ actually functions. But yes, if we focus mostly on the brain, imagine our brain does so many things. So just think about few animals which do not have brain, like they function without a brain. How is that? I mean, there could be something, right? And even it's not like they are dumb. They even perform something extraordinary, even what we human cannot do. I'm bringing human because, of course, when we talk about the organ, if you like think about us, I think it's a good parity between the animal and the human thing. But yeah, imagine people without a brain. How is it going to be? I mean, what we will do? It's more like a vegetable we could be. But for few animals, especially there are quite a few. I'll focus on one particularly, which are from the echinoderms phylum. They are marine invertebrates. And with this marine invertebrate, we will talk about the starfish. Of course, there are sea urchin, corals, and there are a lot of like animals which don't have brain. But let's talk about the starfish, because most of the time if you go for diving and stuff, you might come across, or even in the seashore, you might come across a starfish. And imagine when we talk about a star, it itself is quite I mean, sufficient to do, it seems like it's sufficient to do a lot of thing. But it has like short tentacles, which helps them to keep moving. And it has tiny pinches by which it gets stuck to the area they want to, especially the sea floor or some stones. And of course, they have spines for protection. That they all have. And of course, they are like bilaterally symmetrical. No matter from which arm you cut them, they will always be in an equal portion. And with that, and of course, they do have the arm. But I mean, in every way, so their locomotion shouldn't have any problem because of the tentacles. There are numerous tentacles. And of course, there is a circulation happens by which there's oxygen also flow, you know, in the from the surrounding water. So yeah, but then how everything is coordinated without a brain. So in case of a starfish, they are, there is a nerve ring in its center near the mouth part where my cursor is. If you see that red area, that inner wall is the mouth part, and this is called your nerve ring, central nerve ring. And you have all this, the black area towards the arm are the radial nerve cords. So this every like this nervous system relays impulses from light, touch, chemical, like all the senses around its body. And sea star couple a global, like a directionally command from a dominant arm. Just like suppose they have to move, this maybe this particular arm will have the command, and that will pass through these radial nerves to the nerve ring in the center, and it will pass on to the several arms like this. So imagine, and then they coordinate the locomotion, but after coordinating, they don't need to get back to the nerve ring. They synchronize their motion like that. And this is, or more way for like to make it more easier, it's like for every arm, once they find out exactly what they need to do, they start doing it without further communication. That's how they do it. But they do have a nervous system like the other animals do, but no brain. Their nerves are efficient enough to do that, to have the command. And they have the sensory motor response. And of course, the tubes or the feet, they also have this all together a sensory motor command, which they keep on walking or they keep on moving. And you know what? For stars, if they want to like synchronize for a movement, like they can like move slowly. Most of the time it feels like they don't move. But if they are coordinating and moving faster, they kind of hop like a frog while they have to move faster. So this is depending on the command, their movement also keeps changing. With this echinoderms, there are other like animals like jellyfish, sea anemone, the oyster, corals, manowar, or the you say the clams. They also don't have brain. Everything happens. However, they are moving, they are catching prey, they like getting away from from predation. Everything happens because of this neurotransmitter system. But with this neurotransmitter system, when you talk about neurons that no brain but nerves, let me tell you a sure thing that sponges are the only multicellular animal which don't have a nervous system, even not a brain or a digestive system, nothing. They just they are static at their place, and because of the flow of the water, it passes through its body and it absorbs the nutrients from there. So this is how they get stuck, and that's how they get the energy. But this is the only multicellular organ which doesn't have a nervous system. Brain is a faraway thing. So yes, with sponge, let me stick to the marine life for a while, which is the octopus. After doing a lot of webinar on different features of octopus, we can say that this is an example of intelligence. I mean, which might have come from the alien world. I mean, they have so many things. They have like remarkable ability to change color, shape, and making them the master of disguise by mimicking even the pattern of the object or some other living being beside it. They are like evidences that this is a mimicking octopus, and there are evidences that they are so intelligent that they can actually open up a jar. If you want to take a look at this, just go to YouTube and just type that octopus opening a jar, and you will find the video that how exactly it did it. And with that, octopus is one of a kind which actually can like change its own gene. I mean, we are born with particular genes and bands and mechanism and chromosomes, DNA and everything. They have that thing while the pigmentation or the changing of color or shape it forms. That's incredible. I think it's not only intelligent, this is an extraordinary creature. But with that, I mean, how this intelligence happen without a brain? So imagine we have all this intelligence with one brain, and the octopus has 9 brains. Can you imagine? I mean, this is something like going out of the thing that, okay, I mean, of course they are intelligent, of course they can change their own gene, the gene pattern, because if this is how things are, I mean, like with 9 brain, of course they can do miracles, right? So yeah, so mostly all the cephalopods have multiple neurons like clusters called ganglia, So here if you see, this is the brain it has, okay, and this ganglia becomes a cluster and form the central brain or the main brain, and the other ganglia actually like operate the arms. So you can say that octopus, with in every arm of octopus, like the 8 arms, they have a mini brain, and almost octopuses have 500 million neurons. Imagine 500 million neurons, and around 60% of those neurons are spread in those mini brains. And that's the reason why their octopus's arms can function independently without the instruction of the main brain. That's incredible. I mean, how they do it. Of course, when they are moving at a certain area or at a certain point, when they're moving together, then there's a coordination happen. But suppose a food is going in front of them, and suddenly one arm say, "Oh, that's a food." And it can actually stretch out and hold the food and bring the food towards the mouth. And funny thing, this brain, the central brain, their esophagus, the esophagus actually go passing almost below or through the brain to the mouth. So imagine whenever they are swallowing something, the esophagus actually enlarge, of course, while swallowing something. But of course, thankfully, the brain doesn't get affected. But this is how the structure is done. And the central brain covers only, the part that when the body, the body movement and to get through all things, like all this pigmentation changing, the shape changing, all this coming from the central part. But then the rest of the gestures, even detecting something, is done by the arm. How they can feel the different photons, or the pressure, temperature, the like how the water flowing, or if anything is there, any electromagnetic thing they are touching. That's all been understood by each and every single arm. Oh, that's incredible. And then it didn't stop there. So with 9 brains, of course, there should be something more to make it more efficient to survive in this, in the water. So it has 3 hearts. So imagine for us, it's 1 brain, 1 heart, and it's doing everything in our body. It's good that the octopus has actually given different work to like different part of the organs. That this is the reason why they have separated. So in case of the like heart, they have a main systematic heart and 2 branchial, or if you can say a peripheral heart. They have 2. So the peripheral heart pumps blood through the gills, where it picks oxygen, right? And then the central like circulatory system, or the systematic heart, actually transfer or spread this oxygenated blood to the rest of the body to get energy and of course keep moving. So that's the reason why they have 3 heart. So imagine, and this octopus heart is, of course, another thing is how do they work? Of course, they 3 heart, they are efficient enough to do all this respiratory movement, and of course this circulatory movement. But imagine the environment they live in such pressure, in such temperature. Okay, so it must be difficult, right? So for that, octopus have another thing. I'm telling you that they don't stop. They don't like somewhere we cannot end things with octopus. They have they have a blue blood. Of course, even there are a lot of other species. The horseshoe crab, they also have this blue blood. And yeah, so they have these octopus have a blue blood instead of the red. So the red blood contain this iron, right? We have the hemoglobin in it, but they have the copper base, and that's why they call this like hemocyanin blood. And this copper base is efficient to transporting oxygen more in that temperature and in that huge pressure than hemoglobin. And that's the reason why they efficiently keep on doing the movement, and of course maintaining the pressure. So imagine all this through. Imagine when we are diving down, we have to take so much measures, and we have to take too many precautions. But imagine if our blood would have changed into hemocyanin, we could have easily withstand the pressure you know, down below the sea. Yeah. So with that, like with 9 heart, with no brain, starfish, and then we have this with 9 brains and 3 hearts. Don't get shocked. Let me come to another creature which has 32 brains, and I mean 32 brains. Can you imagine? This is like, seems like it is out of the world. Of course, I mean, but leech. We can't even think that the tiny blood-sucking creature can be so extraordinary. It has 10 stomach, 32 brains, and 9 pair of testicles, and you know, several hundred, rather more than 300 teeth they have. Because they leave a bite mark, and especially this is and you know, nowadays this leech therapy happens, right? um, for a lot of especially for blood, as a blood thinner, they prevent blood clotting, and also it has been found that they secrete more than 20 identified bioactive substances. And that's why in a medical way, like in many many places, or in many areas, they do this leech therapies. And this leech therapy, even imagine, the leeches which are doing this, they have 32 brains. And you know why? Because every leech can be divided into 32 segments, and each and every that two tiny segments have individual brain to like work individually. I mean, how could a, I mean, this kind of animal could have formed? Like, even when we cut it into pieces, imagine, I mean, sorry, we shouldn't do that. But even if it happens, of course, I mean, we are actually dividing all the hearts. You know, it's like they will remain whole. Oh, thank God. I mean, I wish we have some of this you know, features to survive in. But here we are getting far more away to few more things, is the photo force, you know. So imagine when you are diving, or the creatures which are near about 200 to 2000 meter below, it's dark, like almost dark, or it is pitch dark, like ocean. They don't need to, they can't see each other, but they have evolved with different like adaptation or different facilities in their body, so that they can communicate and do things. Imagine what we lack. Of course, we lack of 32 hearts, of course, but at the same time we lack this torch below our eyes. Oh gosh, how it will be? It's nighttime. Let's flash it. I mean, we don't have to run around for a flashlight in the dark. And thankfully, especially where I stay, I wish I have this, because most of the time electricity, I mean, there is a power cut, and I have to keep looking for candles and matchbox. I wish I have this photo force. So there are many creatures down below the ocean which actually has this bioluminescence, and by that they kind of coordinate or see each other, but it is very negligible to human eye. But for this dragonfish, bioluminescence not only comes in one color, but three different color: the red, orange, and blue. And you know, they turn like specialized light emitting cells they are. And these pigments work with the enzyme called cholinesterase. You know, this photon introduced like free radicals. So the scientists are still in a question that why, because blue light is like how it's evolving rapidly into the ocean life. I mean, there everything changes quite rapidly than on the land. Of course, it's not like a 2-3 days, it's been years how it's changing. But this red light, because most of the animal down that dark area don't see red light, but their eyesight is more visual towards the blue light. So imagine why this raid. Maybe it's an hypothesis, maybe because they want to communicate between each other, or they don't want to like other animal to see, especially when it is a prey, but they can actually see which is there, I mean the reflection of it, what is there in front. There are so many things they actually can coordinate with this light. And yes, so we are lack of this beautiful illuminating thing. Then it didn't stop there. Again, few animals have the specialized thing is the venom gland and heat senses. Venom gland, of course, I still can leave it, but imagine if we could have a heat sensor, how different it could be. Like something is coming in front of you, which is a warm-blooded thing, and you actually can figure it out, just like this pit vipers have. So if you see, this is the nostril and this round thing is their pit, by which they actually take the infrared radiation. And you know, their pit is so like I mean, so organized, or I would say so advanced, that even the infrared has also some degrees or some wavelength which this pit can detect, even in darkness. That's a wow factor. Of course, I mean, we do lack a lot of things, no doubt. And with this venom gland, let me come to the next animal, which is the most weirdo, or it is, I think it is the almost not only weirdest, but the amazing, the fascinating, all the adjectives what I can use behind this animal, it would be less, I believe. And especially when it comes to a platypus, they look very different. Imagine, I mean, they are like a bundle of a lot of different animal altogether. They are like a mammal, but they do lay eggs, so they are monotremes. And of course, they have webbed feet like otters, leathery tail like a beaver, broad bill-like shape like as a duck, and of course, it has fur. It brings it a mammal, but at the same time, it has a lot more thing. So when it comes to a platypus, they live in freshwater streams, almost in the Tasmania and Queensland. Those are the free lakes areas they kind of stay in, and they kind of like move around throughout their habitat. I mean, to the range, and almost they spend 10 to 12 hours a night in the I mean, day and night, and they are mostly nocturnal, but day and night they mostly go in the water for hunting. With this, of course, they, as I said, they are nocturnal and mostly nocturnal. And imagine when they are finding something in the water, how do they do that? Actually, they can close their eyes, even ears, and the nostrils when they dive in. And you know, they have these electronic impulses to detect underwater creatures, like a little slightest movement from a shrimp or from a prey or from a worm, they can exactly can catch it. And that's how they do hunting underwater during in the dark. And of course they lay eggs, and that's how extraordinary. I mean, it's, can you imagine? I mean, I it's so fascinating. It is like it has something like bird, how it lays egg, and the mammal, because of course of the other thing. But you know, being a mammal, they don't have nipples. I mean, of course the mammary gland is there, but they don't have nipples. And they are like, they have web toes, as you can see here. And you know, it's very different than the other web toes like a duck. I mean, even if we consider it somewhere close to the birds, it's totally toes are like, free near the web. They have this bone till here, and then it is a web which is the free toes are moving. So if you always see, they are more spread out. The front limb have more spread out webs, so that it can swim faster, and they walk like a reptile on the land. And they have so as I said that they don't have nipples. So when the young are born, like this, the platypus egg need a gestation of almost 2 to 3 weeks, and they generally give out like 2 to 3 eggs, mostly two, and they hatch within 21 days. And those little jelly bean kind of creature like cubs, they would stick to the mother, and the milk would oozes out from the spores and comes to the groove of her belly, and the cub would start licking those protein milk. I mean, how extraordinary that is. And then comes to the venom. And of course, I mean, being a mammal, having venom, of course, there is another animal called slow loris. They also have a venom gland, but this part actually grow in the male, and especially during the mating time. They, unless and until they grow 4 years, they don't reach their sexual maturity, and by the time they almost avoid different sexes. But during mating time, they come together, and of course, this venom spore is used by the male for to gain or just to fight back its rivalries. And to human, this is not lethal, but it can give you excruciating pain. And yes, it's a cocktail of venom it has. I mean, dozens of proteins belong to these three major classes of toxin. So that is pretty toxin for any other animal or even for another platypus. So yeah, with all these features, these are kind of make it so different and unique. But remember, it's a mammal. So mostly all the animals do have like stomach, right? And we know that. Why do we need it? I mean, it is need to break down our food and help us to digest, right? A lot of secretion of acids and enzymes come together, and then it get, that's how the breakdown happens. But this platypus, they don't have a stomach. A whole organ portion is missing from them. And their gullet is connected directly to the intestine. And this whole, like, this digestive things is not required for them. I mean, they don't need a stomach because the kind of food they eat are very simple to break down. And before breaking it down or before swallowing it, what they do, they put a lot of gravel in their grinding beak above the muzzle. And when the food goes in, they start grinding it more into the mouth, I mean, in those flat bills itself. And then they swallow the food. So it's almost get a good breakdown, and it directly pass through the intestine. The nutrients which is required, that has been taken from the small intestine, and then it passes to the gut. And imagine, because they don't have a storage or food storage system in their belly, so they need to eat a lot. They almost keep on eating. That's why they need to stay 10 to 12 hours in water or think for food. Almost they need to eat 30% of their body weight. They have to keep on feeding because, okay, no stomach, no storage, but that then make its life more, less interesting. I would definitely say that. Okay, so with this platypus, let me, as we are talking about this, change, this, but then it's come to the multiple breathing system. Now, when we talk about, so we are done with our no brain, brain, a lot of hearts, an innumerable number of hearts. Then you don't have like stomach like us, and now have multiple breathing system. So we are only evolved to breathe through our lungs, right? But in case of amphibians, especially, and there are of course there are other creatures, especially the marine life. They have different way of breathing, of course, but the amphibian is one of the phylum which has developed a different way of breathing, and their different stage, or even when they are growing up from their neutenic stage. So in terms of a frog, for example, they actually breathe through lungs, through gills, and of course through skin. So this, when it becomes an adult frog or a terrestrial salamander, they breathe through their lungs, and also they breathe through which is called subcutaneous respiration. Okay, the gaseous exchange, their skin is so thin that the gaseous exchange actually happens from the surface, from the epidermis. And there are few salamanders which are lung breather, mostly they are terrestrial, and there are few which never left its neutenic feature, which is having the gills, because they never left the water. That's pretty simple, that they didn't need to develop a lungs. So they breathe through their gills. But at the same time, see, these are different amphibians which are looking. But during even the metamorphosis, they go through this whole change. I mean, when there is a tadpole, they have those gills, right? But when they start growing up, they lose their gills, and when they become more terrestrial, they develop the lungs. Instead of this, when they lose the gills, and when they develop the lung, because they have to be in the water and the moist areas, they actually breathe through the skin. So mostly during winter or during dry summer, when they have to hibernate or estivate, they kind of burrow themselves under the mud, and they don't use their nostrils or their lungs to exchange to do the gaseous exchange. They use their skin. Okay, fair enough that they have different way of breathing and we have lungs. But imagine they do breathe, right? You have to breathe in and breathe out to survive, to make a complete circulation in your body. Because that's how all the multicellular organisms are designed. But there is one recently discovered multicellular organism which does not breathe at all. I mean, imagine they even don't have the mitochondrial gene, which depends, which is there to help in this respiration process. They are they don't have the gene at all. So this is a parasite called Haemogyria salminicola. So why salminicola? Because mostly these parasites are found in the salmon fish. There is because when I say it's a parasite, so let me tell you, it's only for the fish, and especially for the fishery areas that can cause a problem, but it's not threat to human, like no disease in here causing diseases in human till date. That not has been found. So when we talk about this parasite, this is this milky thing, kind of a blob, what you see where my cursors are, they look like kind of a single thing coming out, but when you look through the microscope, you see a cluster of different cells coming like this and form these white patches. And unlike like other parasites in the Mysozoa class, this is from a Mysozoa class, which it's more like jellyfish. It looks like a jellyfish, but it has nothing like the multicellular traits. You know, they have lost their tissue, nerve cell, their muscles, everything. Further research like have found that they have, I mean, initially it was thought that they don't have anything, but the new research has found that they don't even breathe at all, and they don't need to. When they get inside the host body, they kind of retain the energy from the host body, so they don't need to have for something for themselves. How clever they are, this tiny creature. And this alien looking eye, what you see here, this alien type of eye, they are actually you know, the stinging cell, which has no venom, but it is like a latch onto the host when needed. I mean, seriously, it's looking like an alien. And you know, under the the fluorescent light or the fluorescent microscope, they actually turn like this kind of a green in color. I mean, I wish I can look this. I mean, I have seen this bioluminescence fungus, and they look extraordinary in a dark forest. And that is also, you have to like keep your shutter open for a pretty long time, almost 30, yeah, almost a minute or two, and then you get those fluorescence light. But this how, I mean, how the noctilucus even looks at night. It's these creatures are really incredible. So this is the first. Oh, let me tell you, this is the one and only organism on this planet. I mean, till date, as far as the scientists could research about or could to know about, they are the one and only creature, multicellular organism on Earth, which do not have to breathe. Even imagine an amoeba also need an aerobic respiration. They also go through that, but this one doesn't. I mean, oh gosh, I mean, whatever, what treasures are actually there on this planet, and how much we know, and we actually know nothing. At least I can tell about myself. Then come to the, because let me tell you something, this is not only alien looking like cell or the creature, this also look like sperm, right? So talking about the sperm, let me come back to a few animals which can store sperms, like not for a few days. Rather, we know that, you know, in case of human sperm, it says that for 4 to 5 days, they can live, and after that they die. This is how it is. But in case of this few like animals, especially I'll talk about sharks today. So they kind of, you know, female can store sperm until they have viable egg ready to be fertilized. How clever that is, that every time they really don't need to. And of course, by that, they can eliminate the need of copulate when they are ovulating. So imagine you are having your ovulation and you have a stored sperm, so you really don't need to find a mate, because you don't get into this competition of finding a mate and doing it. You store it whenever it's required, you fertilize it, and you just release, you grow the babies. And also the sperm, you know, to be used at the time when they can't find a mate. So yes, and unlike some insects, there are some insects which actually can make out, they copulate with a lot of male, and of course they can make out that which gene they want to pull off, and you know, to get the best gene for their offsprings. But in case of shark, they really don't cannot discriminate it, like which of the gene they can carry. So they kind of, when they get a chance, they kind of mate with different male and kind of store those different male sperm in their body. And sperm in their body. And with that, when so when the pups comes out, I mean, when the babies comes out, it has been seen that in a 1 liter, they contain different male gene. I mean, how incredible that is. I mean, it's really fascinating. There is so much, paternity thing they contain. So before we go ahead, we have to move a little bit more about the reproduction system, because shark has shown different ways of reproduction. Nowadays we kind of come up with a lot of reproductive ways, but the combination of, I mean, the gametes uniting the unite of the gametes didn't change. That is kind of pretty same, and how the babies comes out, that also is very same. But in case of like this few species of sharks, they go through oviparous reproduction, which is they lay eggs. Mostly, I would say the bony fish, which actually leaves out eggs and the sperms in the water, and they kind of fertilize and do these things. But they lay eggs, and this viviparous is like giving live birth. And oviviparous is something egg hatch inside the mother's body. And when it comes to this, and the parthenogenesis is when the female doesn't need her counterpart, that means the male, they give birth to the genetic replica of their own without involving the male. Take this part, oviviparous. There is a like sand tiger shark famously like demonstrate the intrauterine cannibalism. Imagine they are from the oviviparous, like the babies hatch inside the mother's body, and one of the embryo would start feeding on, I mean, being the dominant one, they would start feeding on the other babies inside the womb. And so when it's the time to come out, it's mostly only one shark baby comes out from the vaginal pore. Imagine, I mean, the survival of the fittest or the competition do start even when they're inside the body of their mother. I mean, this is this is of course incredible. So how do they store the sperm? So the part of the oviduct. So this is how the ovaries looks like. This is the oviduct, how it is. So they kind of store the sperm somewhere here where you see these black arrows, and there, and this oviduct actually is also forms the casing for the baby and also produce those jelly like thing to protect the fetus. And in some species, these gland only becomes, I mean, known to store the sperm, and not only for few days, but it has been seen like for years. Even recently, I mean, which has been found that a newborn, this is a brown bamboo banded shark. So it is actually in the in a lagoon or a tank of the Steinhardt aquarium in San Francisco. Almost after 4 years, it has laid eggs, and the egg hatched. And initially the scientists thought that it has changed the thing, it's triggered its parthenogenesis system. But when they have checked the DNA, they found that there is two DNAs, I mean, one from the mother, and there is another DNA from another like shark, of course the male. So imagine she has been storing the sperm for 4 long years. I mean, this is I mean, there it is, of course. In case of shark, we have to know more because they already gave late birth, and then at the same time, if they kind of store sperms and the bycatch sometimes happens, so their life also can be a big threat, and that's how maybe we are losing them. I mean, there are many reasons. This is one of the reasons why is it causing, because where there are low species number, or low number or spread out everywhere, there is difficulty to get mate all the time. So they kind of store it. And if that dies, imagine this whole like reproduction or this 4 years, 5 years gap, if they're laying, if they're giving birth, it takes a really long time to take that part. And with this storing and capacity, so here they were more challenging. I mean, it is in the deep sea especially, because in the upper layer of the movement, or there are too many like density, and especially the shark do come together when there is a mating thing happen, but which are there, in a very secluded areas in the deep blue sea, especially in the New Zealand. I mean, not specially, but in one research has been done from the deep sea sharks in New Zealand, that they have found that how they store. So this is, imagine an oviduct, and all these dark blue areas are the area where they have stored the sperm, and this lighter purplish area are the ovaries, oviduct, I mean, where the eggs are also stored. With the next, the same process also, it's not only the shark, but the same process been followed by a lot of turtle and reptile species, which we have known earlier, I mean, more than the sharks when we are getting to know about it. So these turtles, especially, I mean, for the whole season or for a year or two, they kind of store their sperm as well, but they store the sperm inside the isthmus. So just like the Isthmus of Panama, that little, this narrow line, narrow neck. So imagine this is the oviduct. Near the oviduct, there is a line. So this is the isthmus. And here they store the sperm for whenever it's a viable time to reproduce. In case of an American alligator, can you imagine an alligator also store its sperm, I mean, store sperms? So they kind of store sperms in two places. One is that isthmus area, in both, and largely near the vaginal and uterus junction. There also these alligators stores their sperm. But only one thing, that in case of an alligator, they are seasonal. I mean, when there is the breeding time, they kind of store the sperm. Once they are done, it's somehow it washes out, or they kind of do something which, and for all these, like storing sperms, you know how the movement of the egg in the oviduct actually triggers the sperm to come towards the oviduct, and then the fertilization happens. I mean, imagine for 4 years the sperm is sleeping. Suddenly the egg seems, no, I am ready to be out and I'm ready to mate with the other gamete, and the sperm wakes up and comes to the oviduct and say, here I am waiting for you for last 4 years. My God, I mean, it just seems a fairy tale, stories, how this animal do act. And of course, when we are talking about so much, organs together and different organs, and how do they act, how proactive they are with this. Recently, a bird, which is a bar-tailed godwit, only 5 months old, has broken the world record. It's a marathon flight from Alaska to Australia, and it has moved, I mean, it has crossed almost 8,435 miles in just 11 days. Imagine, and that is also when they have, I mean, it's a juvenile bird. Imagine, just 5 months old, non-stop flight, and they don't have any webbed feet, so they couldn't even, being in the ocean or to stop somewhere. And the transmitter which was attached to it, it says that it didn't stop. It was a continuous flight. Oh my God, gosh, give me some strength like this bird, so that I can go on and on and on. And yes, and imagine the more incredible part is this juvenile migrated separately. It didn't migrate with the adults. They have left that area almost 6 weeks before, and it went, I mean, it just flew there alone and reached to a little diverted path maybe, but it has reached there in Tasmania. Okay, and so all these things happen. I mean, it is incredible, a world record. And of course, we know that Bartel Godwith kind of are making world records because it's always the largest flight they have made non-stop, like marathon flight, what we talk about. But imagine for a marathon like flight bird, how much fat they need to store for their entire journey. So what they do is they have incredible feature that they can shrink their other organs to keep space for the fat to grow around, and also to give more strength to the muscle rather than the other organ or the body parts. So you can see here, this is after the flight. This is a different bird though, but this is after flight, and this is due the fat they have grow. So imagine here in the left hand side, right hand side picture, this is how they grow the fat around their body. This yellowish what you see here, and once they start crossing, so this bird has almost lost 2/3 of its body weight when it has landed in Tasmania, I mean in Australia. So it's not only that our organs like few have more, few have less, but they have also learned or also adopted the capability with the evolution that they actually can control the organs the way they want to. The time, when time comes, and sometime only the intestinal part they cut short, which is called temporary gut atrophy. But that's only the intestine. But in case of this bird, it's all shrink down to something. I mean, these animals have incredible features and techniques to move ahead. And with that, let me come up with this, that even few animals do have an inbuilt GPS system, which we don't have. But some other day we are going to talk about this entire animal world, which actually rely on a particular magnetic field and the GPS network they have to move around the world, travel around the world. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening, and Rob, I'm ready to take up questions.
All right, thank you. Now, before we start with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. With that, let's get to some of these questions. So can you talk about, again, what is the chemical that makes the octopus's blood blue? Can you tell us what that is again?
The hemocyanin. Hemocyanin. So that's a copper-based pigment. Just like we have iron, it's a copper-based pigment called hemocyanin.
Oh, that's really incredible. Great. Thank you for that. So, yeah. Where is it that we can find dragonfish?
So you have to dive really deep into the ocean. They are almost everywhere in the tropical areas. But as I said, from 200 to 2000 meter, you have to go down. So mostly it's all the, mostly the machines which have taken, or the submarines which have taken the photographs of the dragonfish. Gotcha. So you have to go 2000 meter down.
That's pretty far down, my goodness.
Yes.
So does the use of gravel damage the platypus's bill, or does it constantly heal itself?
No, it doesn't damage. That is how the bill is made out of. I mean, they are strong enough to, and they kind of are crushers. So they just use the gravel, they keep the movement of the gravel actually break down the food, but it doesn't harm or do anything to the bill.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Rob, let me give an example of it. Suppose a duck bill, we have seen that the ducks are crushing the snails, you know, when they're feeding. So it, the same thing, the way it doesn't like harm by this, the shell of the snail, the bill, the same thing happens with the platypus.
Understood. Thank you. So let's talk about the parasites in the salmons you were talking about. How, can you explain again how those reproduce and how long do they actually live?
So I'm sorry, I can't, I don't know how long do they live there, because that still it's not been like, because they are in the host, and whenever we have got, I mean, the scientists have got some fish, of course, they have been taken out. So with the host, because they are parasite, with the host, they also die, right? So there is no particular like timeline that how long they survive. And what was the other question related to it?
The other question is
how do they reproduce?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a multicellular organ. It's how asexually how they reproduce. For the multicellular organs or parasites, they do the same way. Like, you know how the parasites have the polyp and then they grow into a new one. It's the same way.
So are the commercial fisheries, are they feeding us salmon contaminated with these parasites?
Oh, that's a good question, but I have tried to find out that. So it says that for the, of course, not for the fresh salmon, they have it, but some which get infected, they have this whitish mark on it. So maybe they actually discard those fish, but at the same time, it is also said that it has caused nothing, no disease to human. I mean, this parasite cannot cause any harm to human, and after cooking and stuff, maybe it doesn't stay alive as well. I mean,
Well,
this is what I got. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good to know. Thank you for assuring us of that. Well, unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'm going to throw it back to you for any closing comments that you may have for us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much for being here every day, every time. And to, like, we all, I mean, presenters are really like happy, lucky, and to get you all every day. And thank you so much. And thank you so much, Rob, for hosting it so nicely. And have a great week ahead, all of you.
Thank you, Arpita, and thank you for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.